Okay, let's dive into one of the most enduring and frankly divisive nicknames in all of American history, Hanoi Jane. This is so much more than just a name. It's a whole story about war, about celebrity, and about a legend that has pretty much taken on a life of its own.
And to really get a handle on the power of this thing, you have to start right here, with the raw, visceral emotion that still surrounds Jane Fonda decades after the Vietnam War. I mean, for a lot of people, this isn't some historical footnote. It is a wound that is just never healed.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How did this happen? To answer it, we have to do something that's absolutely crucial. We've got to separate the powerful, viral legend of Hanoi Jane from the documented and still really controversial historical record.
So first up, let's tackle the story that has defined this whole controversy for a generation. This is the one you've probably seen in a chain email or a Facebook post, and it is absolutely damning.
I mean, this story is just shocking. It's so specific, it's visceral, and it paints this picture of just blatant, cold-hearted treason. It's really no wonder it's been shared millions of times. It just cements this image of a betrayal that actually cost American lives. But is it true?
Well, as you can imagine, a story this powerful eventually got the attention of fact-checkers. The organization Snopes, for one, did a deep dive.
And the verdict? False. Plain and simple. The single most defining event, the story that fuels so much of the rage against Hanoi Jane, it never actually happened. It's a complete myth.
And get this, every single person named in these viral stories, including the supposed victims, like Colonel Larry Kerrigan, has come out and said, nope, it's a work of fiction. I never even met her. Even authors who argue that Fonda could have been tried for treason admit that this specific horrible story is a total fabrication.
Okay, so if the betrayal story is completely false, what did Jane Fonda actually do in North Vietnam? Because the documented facts of her trip, well, that's what sparked the original controversy in the first place.
Her 2-week trip back in July of '72 was just packed with these incredibly provocative actions. She went to civilian areas to claim the U.S. was bombing them. She made propaganda broadcasts over Radio Hanoi aimed at American soldiers. And of course, she took that infamous photograph. But you'll also notice she met with a small group of POWs and even brought hundreds of their letters home to their families.
And what's really interesting is how specific the actual event was. It wasn't some huge group of prisoners. These are the only 7 American POWs Fonda ever met. All of them volunteered for that meeting, and, this is the crucial part, not one of them has ever backed up that betrayal story.
So even when you throw out the myth, her real actions were so controversial that they sparked a very serious legal question back home in the States. The question was, could she actually be charged with treason?
Now, the U.S. Constitution has a very, very high bar for treason. It's super specific. And the key phrase here, the one the entire debate hinged on, is giving them aid and comfort.
So here's how that legal argument went. People argued that her broadcasts on Radio Hanoi, where she was literally denouncing the war to American troops, could be seen as a form of psychological warfare. And that photo of her on a North Vietnamese anti-aircraft gun, a gun used to shoot down American planes, well, that was seen as a powerful, symbolic act of adhering to their enemies.
So you had this huge, heated debate, you had a congressional inquiry, and what was the legal outcome? Nothing. The Department of Justice decided not to move forward. The bottom line is, Jane Fonda was never formally charged with treason.
So that brings us to the final, fascinating piece of this puzzle. If the worst story about her is false, and she was never charged with any crime, why has the Hanoi Jane name become more toxic and powerful over time, not less? When you look at the data, something really surprising just jumps right out. The use of the name Hanoi Jane didn't actually peak during the war. It faded, and then it exploded in the late 80s, and then again in 2004. It became this political weapon long after the fighting stopped. And according to historians like Neri Hirschberger, this was no accident. She argues it was part of a larger, very conscious effort to reframe the whole narrative of the Vietnam War, to shift the blame for the loss away from political or military failures and onto dissenters back home. You can't find a better example of this than during the 2004 presidential campaign, when this doctored photo went viral. It was specifically created to link the candidate, John Kerry, directly to all the Hanoi Jane controversy. It was a visual lie, a fake image of a shared stage that never, ever existed.
Now, for her part, Jane Fonda has never once apologized for opposing the war, but she has repeatedly and very forcefully apologized for that one infamous photo. She's called it a betrayal to American soldiers and the single biggest mistake of her life.
So, to really understand Hanoi Jane, you have to see it as three separate but overlapping stories. First, you have the viral myth about betrayal. Then you have the real history of her controversial anti-war actions. And finally, you have this powerful political symbol that's been used to fight new battles for decades.
And all of this leaves us with one last big question to think about. In an age where we have more information at our fingertips than ever before, why is it that powerful stories, even the ones that are proven to be false, so often have more staying power than the complicated, documented truth?